which I think makes a lot of problems. He talked about "Ich bin religiös und musikalisch," right? There were, I don't know how many levels of mutual irony and enveloping each other, belonging to that. He was kind of half taking himself down, half covering up his relation to his mother. Anyway, it's very, very complex. But that is a common, and Habermas always uses that too. And I think that's a very big mistake. Yes, we are very deaf to a lot of other positions, including atheist positions, but everybody has a passionately held position. I mean, most people do. And what we need to do is get over the idea either that I'm unmusical in his position or he's unmusical to my position. Get over that and start talking. And if that takes a certain attitude of respect for the other. And if you do start talking, it is one of the most remarkable, I think, spiritual developments of our day. I think some of the most interesting spiritual developments are happening between. I've learned a great deal from Buddhists. I've learned a great deal from certain Muslims. I've learned a great deal from certain Jews. And I've learned a lot from certain atheists. And I wouldn't have the spiritual life I have, or for what it's worth.
Nazistów też? Od nazistów?
And have you learned from Nazis? Have you learned also from the Nazis? Have you learned something from the Nazis? Fascists?
Problem.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's not a problem. There are certain positions which are made by kind of primitive rage and rejection, total rejection of anything else, and you can't talk to those people. You know, you can't talk to those people now. But I mean, we're not without certain milder versions of that in our own lives. We're often writing off other positions, right? And we're not talking to them. Now, it's not systematic like the fascists. But I mean, your point, Alan's point about the limits of solidarity is very, very important. There are certain groups one can't have solidarity with. Yeah. But I was talking here about a very particular.
You do not know in advance. This is,
yeah.
You do not know in advance. This is most important. So.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking about the solidarity necessary for a democratic society, and that's something different. That is one's solidarity with other compatriots, right? Now, of course, there are some that are total criminals and are murdering people, and you want to put them in jail. But in general, you have a sense of solidarity with your fellow Poles, Canadians, Italians, and so on. And we're worried about that. When you're talking about international solidarity, who should I sign a petition for? I very much agree with you. I very often get petitions and sign this, and I say, well, just a minute, you know, the other, you know, you got to put this in a bigger context, or I can't sign. And I feel this about, for instance, the Israeli-Palestinian thing. I will just not take up a one-sided position on that, because I think it's actually making the situation worse if you simply line up with one side. But the solidarity within society is, I think, something that requires this kind of openness. Thank you.
Grazie. Mi prendo solo un minuto per una.
Thank you. Just some closing remarks. I would like to thank all the panelists and my colleague, Krzysztof Michalski. When I read this title, Religion in Public Space, I told myself that what we define as a public space today was a ring where clashes were triggered, where people were died. The Second World War killed 1/3 of all the people who died in our history, and the balances that were struck relying on people's quality. And given that in people religious belief is a trigger for life, then they inevitably impact the public space. But we would be missing something here unless we mentioned the need that the religious experience brings along. The respect of its gratuitousness. So it is good not only if it shows that it is worthwhile, or that if it shows that it is working. It is good because there are human beings who cultivate it, who are dedicated to it, who respect the 10 or 8 or 9 commandments, and practice a certain type of virtues. And as Martin Buber said, at the end of their day, they address God by his first name, and it is then that they discover something important about their being human. Thank you.